Welcome back to another episode of The Workplace Wonder. I'm Blake Cohen.
And I am Kara Kirby.
Do you ever feel like it's weird to say your name? Like when you introduce yourself, I'm Blake Cohen. Like you just so like, it's uncommon. I feel like I'm much more comfortable saying I'm Blake than I'm Blake Cohen. It just feels like I'm talking about someone else. Does that make any sense?
I think maybe it's just like the mark of a good speaker or facilitator to not want to actually talk about yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah, deep thoughts.
That was interesting. Okay. That was great. I don't know how that came up so quickly, too.
I have a lifetime of I'm messing with people. No, of course I do think I don't like the sound of my own voice. And also like my last name not my maiden name, so that's even weirder. Right. So like, yeah, if it changes, it's even strange because you're like, is this who I am?
I've been married for 5 years, and still when my wife writes her name down or like refers to us as the Cohens, I'm like, that's weird.
That's for adults. That's for adult people.
Right.
I used to do that when I was taking my son into his like daycare when he was little. I would tell my husband, I'd be like, do you think people are like, why is this teenager here with this child? Like, she's clearly too young to be dropping off this child. And he was like, no, Kara, no one has ever thought that. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Couldn't he just let you live your dream out a little bit longer?
Yeah, just tell me people think I'm a child bride at 32 years old, okay? It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I've recently just started getting ID'd for like my wife will send me to the supermarket and I'll get her wine or something. And for the longest time, they would not ID me. And I'm like, oh God, I must look old. And then out of nowhere recently, they just stopped IDing me.
They stopped or they started?
They stopped.
Oh, yeah. It's because we don't look like we're 21. They shouldn't be IDing you, Blake. But I mean, you do. You look 22, right? Like that's the reason why they stopped. So
okay.
Don't take that personally.
You're gassing me up today. I feel good.
Good. That's what I'm here. Just raise the confidence.
All right. So this is a podcast and not just a conversation between the two of us. So, although it sort of is.
Whatever.
You said you had a topic, and I don't know what it is for anybody who's listening. So this is a surprise to me.
No, I was going to talk about this today because I need to work out my thoughts on it and I don't feel like writing. So I'm just going to verbally discuss this. So a little while ago, you had actually brought this up, but I've been seeing this topic circulate of the word workplace toxicity losing its luster, right? Like, there's like the hype cycle where things start low and then they start building hype. They get to the highest point of hype and then it starts losing it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a toxic boss or toxic work, it's at the lower side of the hype cycle right now where the word itself has lost meaning and lost a little bit of power. But I still think, and I wrestle with that idea because I do want it to be top of mind for leaders and organizations, but I don't like the fact that it's kind of started to lose meaning. And I saw this word the other day about workplace incivility. And it made me think about the Mean Girl mom culture, that episode that we did with Dr. Noel. And then I was like, oh, just like everything else, the way that people need to be looking at this is a spectrum, right? So it going workplace incivility, toxicity, and then actual bullying, and then being able to have a language to each of those, because I think whenever it's just below toxicity, first of all, everything that's workplace incivility, people feel it as toxicity, but then it doesn't get taken seriously, right? But there's also, I don't think people talk about incivility of like the mean girl mom culture that's inside of our workplaces. There's not a language to it. So then it doesn't get discussed, but it still causes the same amount of damage. So anyways, that's my random thoughts on that, is that I think there needs to be a spectrum and like definitions and a language for organizations so that it's not everything's just getting channeled into one bucket.
Yeah, I mean, there to me, this is sort of like the beauty of the English language and also the pain of the English language is that
Mm-hmm.
there's oftentimes many words applied to the same concept. And so I know that actually in a lot of research when they discuss toxic workplaces, the academic term is workplace incivility, but
Mm-hmm.
they're actually describing a toxic workplace. So that's like more the layman's terms.
But I think that, and I mean, maybe that's, and there might be research on this already, right? Like I'm just kind of baking this idea of like there's a line between covert and overt. And that's where things get messy, right?
Mhm.
Because where is that line of whenever you just feel like something's off versus someone's like overtly like targeting you? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, there's a lot there. To me, the covert tactics are so much more difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is much more toxic because it's essentially like organizational gaslighting. And you're just
Mm-hmm.
basically in this weird position where you know you're being targeted, but you don't know how to explain it or describe it. And that to me is very toxic because
Yeah.
it eats at your soul. Like
Yeah.
I am like an imagery person. So when I'm thinking toxic, I'm thinking literally like toxic sludge eating away at me. And toxic workplaces in that place or in that way, especially covert, is like the ultimate way to just slowly chip away at your mental health and eat
Mm-hmm.
away at it. And it's really hard to cope with. And I do agree. I do think there's a huge spectrum of it. I think there's toxic instances and there's
Mm-hmm.
behaviors and there's mistakes that people make as humans.
For sure. I think 90, I always tell that to people is that it's accidental, right? Like
Yeah.
my phrase I use all the time is that there isn't a leader that wakes up wanting to make other people miserable. Like there just is. I mean, maybe there is. I mean, I think we have some examples right now, but in their minds, right? It's like in a person's mind who actually is a quote unquote toxic leader, they think they're doing the right thing. They
Yeah.
don't,
I
yeah.
wrestle with this all the time, by the way.
Same,
And
same.
this is like a horrible, horrible example. And so like I'm gonna throw this out there. First of all, I'm Jewish. Second of all, like I'm not saying this person was a good leader, but like to me, Hitler is such a powerful example of somebody who genuinely thought in their crazy mind that they were doing the right thing by Germany, by doing everything that they did.
Yeah.
And they thought they found the common enemy and they thought they were the savior of Germany. And they believed they were doing the right thing. And they got other people to buy into that belief. And there was a bunch of people walking around thinking that like the Germans rounding up groups of people and committing mass murder was good and was the right thing to do, despite how many people it was hurting. So, like, I think about that constantly that they're waking up with this just conviction that, no, I'm doing the right thing. And this is the right thing. And, we look at our current leadership in the country and they're very controversial in a lot of ways. But to them, they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. I
And
mean, this goes back to this book that I just read that is on this guy. His name is Robert Welch, and he started the first alt-right movement. And I really I think like the goal of a thinking mind is to really understand that. Like, what does the other person think is right? And like, what is fueling it, right? And so like that is the thought process, is that I'm saving everyone through fighting communism. I'm not saying I believe in that, but like it's just like I think that there is that, like, you have to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes and say like, what is the fuel? What is about this that makes them feel like they are right? And like when you can't do that, that's when you have dogmatic thinking. And that's
Mhm.
when things like the freaking Nazi takeover happens. Like I just don't think people do that enough, is like try to see
Yeah.
it through that other lens.
There's like this weird feeling that I get when we have this conversation that my beliefs, anybody's beliefs are just that.
Yeah.
And if there can be two beliefs about the same subject and both think that they're right, then who's right? Like there is no right. It's just really just opinion. And so that's where to me it's like getting upset with other people because of their beliefs. It's a lot of that sting has come out. I think it's just as I've grown and become more educated and dealt with a lot more people. I don't get upset with other people's beliefs if they're different than mine because they're just that. And they're just beliefs. And they think that they're right. And I this may be too like altruistic or idealistic, but like I believe everybody's coming from a good place ultimately.
Yeah.
And it just sometimes comes out in ways that go against my values.
Yeah, I do think though that I mean, I see that and I think that that is ideal, but I do think that there are people that know how to manipulate an ignorant mind.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, I like do all this research on cults and coercive leaderships. And I need to stop, but I don't know why I can't. I'm just started reading this book right now about this woman who teaches about mind control. And I'm like, damn it, I said I was going to stop doing this and I just can't stop. But it's really interesting how people can get so sucked into cultic thinking. And it's really easy to influence people's minds. And I don't think enough people understand how susceptible they are. And actually, like the research has shown, is that the more you think that you're not susceptible to cult like thinking, the easier it is for you to get sucked into it.
Really?
Because we're social beings, right? Like the way that it starts is by like love bombing and acceptance and
Mhm.
belonging. Like that's what humans want at the end of the day. So it's like why all these girls got sucked into multi-level marketing, right? Like it's this ideal future and it's a community and doing this thing with your friends. It's not because of skincare or because of Tupperware. It's the community aspect of it. And like, if you look at cults and coercive leadership, that playbook is used over and over and over again. And even some organizations, right? Like, it's like make people feel like they're a part of something bigger, like love bomb them, and then the egregious stuff happens down the road.
I wonder how often a cult leader is thinking, I want to manipulate people or I want to take advantage of people. Or is there some level of psychopathy or narcissism going on where they do believe that they're right and that they're doing the right thing? And again, I'm not excusing their behavior
Yeah.
because I do think this can be turned in the wrong way and it's bad. So I always wonder is like at what point I think you go against there's like a going against a moral code, right? And it gets to a point where you're damaging and really hurting people, take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of them. But I wonder, as the cult leader, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
What are their beliefs? Do they think that they are some type of god or some type of prophet? And like, I always think about that is where are they at?
The ends justify the mean. The means justify the end. The end justifies the means is what that expression is. I don't
Yeah.
know. Actually, this researcher, this doctor that I've been listening to, her name is Rebecca Lamov. She's actually been talking about that, but because I listened to her on one podcast, I went and listened to her on all the rest because she's like been studying mind control and like doing like this really deep dive into like the history of like the CIA and all of these people who were in the Korean War that like all these horrible things happened to. And there was this part of the CIA that formed that started studying mind control because the Communist Party at that time was able to use this on these soldiers so well that like in our defense we started studying it, right? So
Mhm.
anyways, that question just came up because a lot of people ask, like, because cults are so mainstream right now because there's so many documentaries, so people are interested in it. So people ask the question of like, oh, could I ever get like sucked into a cult, right? But someone on this last one was asking, like, could I actually accidentally become a cult leader? And so there was like a discussion around it. So I don't know the answer. I will say that inside of my practice, when I started like learning about coercive leaderships and large group awareness trainings, which are very psychologically manipulative to humans, and just like these tactics that can happen with people in a group, that I did not realize that there were things that I was taught to do through being a facilitator and through leadership development and even through my education that were not actually like the most ethical things to do with a group.
Hmm.
So maybe if you're giving them the most grace, they're just like, ooh, this kind of works, right? It's kind of like you can bond a group really easily by having them share vulnerable moments. That's a tactic that like almost every group uses when they want to assimilate a group. So it's like, oh, that works. I'm going to keep doing it. And there's not a reflection of, well, is this right and is this ethical?
Which I guess should always be a question,
Yeah.
especially if you're helping people. Should always be a question: is this ethical and right? And also, what is that line?
Mm-hmm.
Like because then I think it also comes down to intention and results.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can be more effective by using some tactics that are considered manipulative, is all manipulation bad?
Yeah.
There's just such like a
And not all
line,
cults are bad, and not all cult leaders are bad, right? Like
right?
there is a line.
Right. If you're
And
giving people hope, if you're educating people, you're making them better and they feel better, you know, what's the harm? But then I think it really like there's been some documentaries I've seen about cults and different stuff where when it comes to the cult leader is just becoming like enormously financially wealthy
mm-hmm.
and is being like a vampire to people and just sucking the life out of
They get
everyone and
really,
financially.
yeah. There's always I like to have a lot of girlfriends thing too.
Yeah, that always happens.
Yeah.
I was thinking like David Koresh, that like his whole thing where it's like suddenly he just decided one day that God told him that all your wives are now my wives. And it's just like, okay. And people go along with that.
Yeah, it's
But
strange.
I think about it again, like what level of control are you trying to have? And I think if you are going to be use manipulative tactics, you have to be aware that you are doing it and it has to be for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get too carried away, like you need like a shut off button, something that can be like, wait a second, I've gone too far because now I'm controlling or now I'm just doing this for power and to
Mm-hmm.
feel better about myself.
Yeah. And I debunked a little bit of this one time on a TikTok video. It was very official. But there were some studies of like what power does to the brain. And so
Mhm.
there was, I think, have I told you this before?
No.
Oh my God, this is like one of my favorite research stories about a practitioner. So there was this guy, I can't remember of his name, I'll link it in the show notes. And he started realizing that there was a change of behavior when people would get power, right? Which is pretty intuitive. And then so he started studying it more and more. And then he came to the conclusion that when people, whenever they attained power, the empathy sector of the brain and our mirror neurons would shut down. So people, there
Really?
was a correlation. I know it sounds great, but I don't know. I did a deep dive on this. I don't know if there's like true science behind it, but I like the sound of it. But so his results were that mirror neurons and the empathy center in our brain would shut down whenever we started feeling like we were better than. And there is actual research that shows that whenever like we get flooded with dopamine when we feel like we have more status, right? Like that's the neuro leadership part of that. So like our for whatever reason, our brains do like power and they like feeling like they are more human than these humans down here because they get rewarded with dopamine whenever that happens.
Mm.
So that might be another, like research topic of like, do our brains get addicted to power at that point? I don't know. Anyways, the reason why I like that story, I don't know if it's 100% true, but there was like such a simple solution. So he would try to do these workshops where he would get leaders to just like think about a time when they were powerless, to like re-trigger that part of the brain that had empathy and could like be like, I'm a human, you're a human, right? And no CEOs bought it. Like he couldn't sell it into any organization.
And that makes sense. They're like they're in love with themselves, in love with the idea of power. I mean, power is a drug. And I think back to so many interviews with different celebrities where there's obviously some that are just so far gone, like don't not in touch with reality at all. And then you hear so often, every so often about these celebrities who are like they're constantly called down to earth or humble or
Mm-hmm.
just seem like a normal person. And whenever they're asked about that, they always say the same thing. It's that I maintained all my old friends and they keep me in check. They don't let my ego get the best of me. And so I always go back to that and I suggest it to leaders all the time to have that board of directors of not just people who are yes people, but those old friends who've known you your whole life or family or people who can tell you the truth and let you know that you are behaving ridiculously, and bring you back down to
Yeah.
earth. You need that stuff to maintain the perspective. Because I really think that it's the drive towards the power that usually makes people successful. But once they achieve that, it's really hard to maintain
Mm-hmm.
because you're not pushing anymore. You don't have that humility or compassion or empathy like you talked about that helped them get there.
Yeah.
So then you sort of like you start to go back down and
Well,
after plateauing.
humans have a hard time also. Like one of my greatest mentors, like she would always tell groups that you need to like set your goals higher because there's like an interesting thing that happens once you hit your goal because you can go through a time where you lose your purpose a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, so there might be a piece of that too, of like I've gotten to this place, now where do I go? Um, but also groups are funny, right? Like they will rise someone up and then they will discard them in a moment. In that book I was telling you about, that's called My Conspiratorial Life. The guy, there's this segment that I thought was really interesting because the guy is talking about how he felt like his deputies started to turn on him, so he fired everyone and then he hired people that would agree with them, and so he could be surrounded by yes men and like feel like he was more in control. So that made me think, I was like, that could be another interesting article of like going back and seeing how many times you have a leader of an organization or a leader of a movement, and when they feel like people are turning on them, they fire them and then hire more yes men, and then what does that cause because they lose critical insight into what they're doing.
I mean, you're describing our current president, and like, regardless of like right wing, left wing, whatever side you're on, like, we can all admit that that's exactly what's been
Yeah.
happening. It's happened. I would say it's happened. It happened much more in the last presidency, but not
Mm-hmm.
Biden, like his Trump's last term. But that was very much a common theme of like, I hired this person, they're challenging me, get out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if did you watch the Titanic or the Titan submarine documentary?
Mm-mm. Oh, about the no, tell me though. I will watch it. I love a documentary.
So it's exactly what we just there's a ton of little leadership tidbits in there and like toxic organizations talk about that. Like, watch this documentary, but this is exactly what he did. They would hire people to help with safety. Those people would come in and be like, you cannot put people on this submarine, or those noises mean there's critical damage. When you hear that when you go underwater, that's bad. You can't put people on this. And they would be gone the next day. And if
Yeah.
they weren't gone, they would turn everybody against them to the point where they would quit. So there
Yeah.
was a bunch of stories
It's like
that were
a
in,
group think
yeah.
case
And so,
study.
well, and
Well,
it just
maybe
created.
group think and coercive leadership and power scarcity case study.
Yeah, it was an extreme culture of fear. And
Hmm.
if you spoke out and challenged anything that was being done, you were isolated and then ultimately exiled. So it became either you buy in and you agree and you just go with it despite what everybody's saying, or you're gone. And
Yeah.
it was really interesting to watch because there were so many people that would come and go, that would complain, they'd be booted, and then you would see the dynamic of the people who just
Mm.
bought into this charismatic leader. No matter what they said, they were just going with it, and they would hear these problems and know that they're not good, but the charismatic leader would just say, no, 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 it's fine. We
Were
have a bigger
they
vision
being
here.
like was there like love bombing? Like was the guy like almost a cult leader in himself?
No, I think it was the opposite, where it was probably another cult tactic. I'm just assuming. I haven't studied it, but
Tell me what it is and I'll tell you if it is.
it was, you had to really fight for their attention. So like if he gave you
Mm.
attention, you felt special,
Yeah,
but otherwise,
that's a cult leader
it
tactic.
yeah, it was just like, this person is above you. If you can get their attention, you're amazing.
Yeah.
And so those people in that inner circle who got that attention just bought into everything that was said. It's a really interesting documentary.
And the
Also,
smartest people in the world, right? Like I'm
mhm.
sure there was just like highly intelligent people. And I
But
mean, that just goes to show that you
blinded,
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think that one of the things society needs to do is just everyone admit that, like, everyone can be susceptible to like these powers of control,
absolutely.
and that's what keeps you safe.
What I was really impressed by were the people who were getting paid very well and were part of this movement and were potentially going to do something incredible with this submarine, but saw the problems and were willing to speak up and just say, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. If you're going to kill people, and have that foresight and the courage to speak up in that kind of environment, I really admired that. And, we all think that we would be that person, but I don't think that that's that easy in reality.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
the other piece that was so interesting was how brilliant the leadership and some of these people were. I mean, absolutely brilliant people, but they were so blinded by vision and ego
Hmm.
that he was obsessed with this idea of becoming the next Elon Musk of the ocean. And also he had that sunk cost bias, where
Yeah.
they had put so much time and money in that when it came time to launch and start selling tickets to this thing, they were like, we're moving forward no matter what the problems are. And never admitted that, but you could see that bias showing up, just going like, there's so much money invested in us. We have so many people that we're accountable to, and we've spent a lot. We've got to move forward no matter what, despite all the safety concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. I do wanted to tell you, just going back to the toxic workplace thing. So I was in New York over the weekend for a family
You're not
event,
from there.
not from there, and, um, and was with my younger brother who works for Amazon and some of his friends who work for various tech companies. And the topic of how Amazon manages came up because they had this whole recent thing like discussing promotions of their employees. Like, so it was like a bunch of the managers meeting, and basically they fight for employees who deserve promotions because there's only so many they're allowed to give out. So everyone's there to just argue why they think their employees, one of two of their employees, deserve it. And then they have this weird thing that they do
That's
where,
pretty typical. I mean, it might not be like as overt as that, but like that's almost a talent management process.
yeah,
But I don't agree with it, right? That like this idea of nine boxing. Have you learned about that or experienced it yet?
I've heard the name. I don't remember what it is though.
I always look at it as like a sorority recruitment. I wasn't in a sorority. I always thought that that thing that they do is interesting because they'll put everyone's like face up on the board and then like a committee will talk about them. So a nine boxing is a sorority of organizations, and it's one of those things that everybody does and nobody questions. And so it's like the nine boxes, they do really good work and they have high potential. So like, and you're not supposed to put all your employees in that number 9 slot. And so there's always like these they call them calibration meetings where you calibrate where people
Yeah,
should actually be.
that's
Yeah.
what this was. So that's what they were going. So basically, based off your top performers, they are now setting the standard. And even if you have somebody on your team who is doing very well but not hitting this new standard, they are now on a performance improvement plan and given a performance coach and potentially up for firing. And I
And
was
a
like,
lot of leaders do not know how to make a fight for their team member. Like
yeah,
if you're a new manager and you don't understand that process, you don't understand the game, then you're going to lose, and so is your team. Like
right.
it's such a stupid organizational like accepted process. I could roll
Yeah.
my eyes for days on it, but yeah.
Yeah, it exists. And I'm sure like McKinsey or McKinsey, whatever their name, I always mess up their name. I'm sure like there's somebody who comes in and pushes that, promotes that to people. But anyway, so I was bringing up the idea that I feel like the whole thing we've talked about where like Amazon is one of those companies that's just too big. Like they can do whatever they want and
Yeah.
they can treat people however they want because they're Amazon. But the issue is that other companies see what Amazon's doing and follow suit, or see what Elon's doing and follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not too big to fail, and they are going to lose people. And so I was talking about that with these we'll just call them tech bros, and
Did they have
they
on
were
vests?
one did.
Okay.
Um,
That's
tech
not
bro.
that's not good. That's not good odds, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well,
I like when they have matching outfits. That's my favorite. Like when
they
you
were
go to
all
I would always do that. I mean, when I drank and I was like being catty, but when I would see the guys in a group and they would all be wearing matching outfits, I'd be like, you guys look so cute. They did not enjoy
yeah.
it, but I thought it
No,
was so
sure they did. And I will say these people are all awesome guys.
awesome.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
them
I know.
all, but they were telling me the culture of corporate tech companies in New York City. And they're like, that whole thing of like treating people well is gone. They're like,
Yeah,
we
it's
don't,
gone.
it's not part of our culture anymore. That was post COVID as we were rehiring or hired too many people, or we were firing a ton of people. That was the thing. Now it's really back to competition. It's back to get rid of your entitlement, do your job, shut up,
Be happy
work
you have a
together.
job. Yep.
Exactly. Be grateful you got a job. And the new fear, obviously, is AI in all these tech
Mm-hmm.
companies of going, they're all receiving letters saying, in the next few months, we're reevaluating our workforce because of advancements in AI. And so everybody's really fighting for their job now. And there's just this whole new era of fear, just like there was during COVID, where everybody thought they were going to get fired. And I was trying to say, like, what we're talking about, though, isn't gone. You still are working together with people. So you still do have to value that stuff. And they're like, no, you don't. It's not part of our culture. We're doing just fine. We're producing the highest numbers we ever produced. So you can't argue this. And my argument is always like, but you could be doing better if you guys work together better.
I think the argument could also be that it's very short-sighted.
That's exactly where I was going with this. Is
Yeah,
that
I mean, you're
exactly.
enjoying this. You're enjoying this right now because it's like in real estate, you have a buyer's and a seller's market, right? Like you're in a buyer's market right now, but I mean, we have been talking about this for 20 years that we're going to reach a point where all the baby boomers are going to retire and there's
Yep.
not going to be enough people to replace those seats. Like that's just math. And so this is not going to last. Right now they'll be there, but then the pendulum's going to swing back. And AI, okay, yeah, it's going to take a bunch of jobs, but there's still people that don't know how to convert a PDF, like a document into a PDF, right? Like
Right.
it's like, I don't know. I feel like a little bit of it's, if I'm being my most ideal self, I feel like a little bit of it is hype, right? And that you still like, we are still humans living with each other. And if you take all the humans out of the workforce, who are you going to sell shit to? Like there's, yeah, so
I agree. And so that's exactly where I ended up going was like, well, okay, maybe you're saying right now it's not a part of your culture, but I promise you the pendulum's going to swing back the other way when everybody starts quitting or everyone's unhappy or people aren't performing well. it's going to swing back the other way. And like, there should be a middle ground that I believe in, the middle ground of like, you should shut up and do your job, but you should also be happy at work and take care of and have really strong relationships and a great team. Like there's a middle ground there. You should understand basic psychological principles at work, but also like, yes, jobs are fairly scarce right now, and you should be grateful that you have a job. So like, there is a middle ground. Last thing I'm going to say is that one of the folks worked for a very famous influencer who owns a very large company in New York, who whole thing is rooted in empathy. That I'll tell you who it is after. Off.
I already know who it is, and it's not tried and true inside the organization, I bet, is what you're about to say.
It is to an extent. It is to an extent. So like the bottom half of the organization in terms of hierarchy, it's incredible. Like they're all incredible and they're so empathetic and they're a great team. The closer you get to the leader, the less true it is.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just thought it was very.
That's a sign of a cult.
They're
freaking it's like everything.
I have a theory that you secretly want to be a cult leader. And
I do not. I do not. I know. No, I don't like power. I don't.
You know what you'd be really good at though is being an undercover investigative journalist to infiltrate a cult.
Yeah, you get my like neurodivergent hyper focus on something. Like, yeah, I'll ruin someone.
Yeah, it'd be so interesting. Let's send you into a cult for the Workplace Wanderer.
No, no, I'm good. I don't.
You don't want to find your twin flame.
I wish I could get this damn fascination out of me, right? Because it really gets in the way of things. But I don't know. It just always explains so much.
Yeah. All right. I know you got to go. So Thank you, everybody. I hope this was a little interesting conversation that you just eavesdropped into. And
forgive me. Sorry if you feel like I'm
No, it was great.
Like the people pleaser in me like hates to talk about the things that I actually think about.
No, I listen, Kara, give the people what they want. Okay. There's huge demand for this type of podcast. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll be back in a couple weeks with a new episode.